I'm sitting there, hand wrapped around a glass of lemonade. HOA approved, naturally. And right then my wife, who's 8 months pregnant and glowing like a street lamp, stumbles and drops her baby shower cupcake right onto the asphalt. I remember the taste of that lemonade, sharp, metallic, something so wrong it made my teeth ache. I look up, and across the cul-de-sac, Mara Yates, the HOA president, our local cardigan dictator, always smirking like she's got the winning lottery ticket, lifts her own plastic cup in a little toast and leans in to whisper to her vice chair. Clients has a flavor. And let me tell you, right then, the world just stopped. Sirens started howling down the street, echoing between the houses. I hadn't called them. My brother, Noah, Sheriff Crowell, had, because he'd been listening in on a wire he set up for us. The cupcake split open on the blacktop, all blue frosting and pink sprinkles, like evidence at a crime scene. My name's Ethan Crowell. I'm not the type to cause trouble. I keep to myself, grill on Sundays, alphabetize my tools, that sort of thing. My wife, Lena, she's just about due, and her wildest crime is a doormat that reads, "Please don't make me get up." We moved to Cedar Hollow 3 years ago, thinking we'd finally found peace. Kids on bikes, neighbors waving, all that stuff you see in brochures. Instead, what we got was Mara. To her, bylaws are the gospel, and anyone who doesn't measure their grass with a ruler is a heretic. She fined folks for the color of their front doors. Last summer, Mrs. Chin got hit for a garden gnome Mara said created visual discord. The Rodriguezes? Their sin was leaving Christmas lights up till January 2nd. Mara carried her clipboard like it was the sword of justice, heels clicking like a countdown. I figured we'd keep our heads down, but the day Lena got a maternity parking pass, Mara zeroed in, like a heat-seeking missile. She came knocking at 7 a.m., sniffed at our doorstep, and before we knew it, violation notices started pouring in. Unauthorized crib, unlicensed bathtub, excessive nesting. I kid you not, $1.50 for the crib because we hadn't submitted a nursery modification request, $100 for the bathtub, and $200 for floral curtains that exceeded the approved color palette by 3%. It would have been funny if the fines hadn't come with threats of liens against our home. I tried talking sense into Mara, but all I got was that trademark frozen smile. She slid a piece of paper over to me, said, "Approved unanimously," and winked. I checked with the other board members. They'd never even heard of the meeting. Mara just made things up, and the neighborhood let her. Then came the surveillance. First a motion sensor camera in our hedges. She called it stroller compliance. I pulled it. She called the cops. The officer was embarrassed, but had to log it. A couple days later, Lena almost stepped on pesticide pellets, left for the community cats. I swept them up and kept them in a jar. Then Mara slid a flyer under our door, warning home births, lower property values, and listing approved hospitals, none of which were where Lena planned to deliver. The mind games just kept ramping up. Mara started parking outside our house, just watching. She'd walk past. Phone pointed at our windows 6, 7, 8 times a day. Said she was documenting compliance. It wasn't illegal, but it sure made us feel like prisoners in our own home. The final straw? Bitter flakes in the sugar jar. We changed every lock, got a deadbolt for the sliding door, even put in a security bar. The next morning, Mara's blasting us on Nextdoor for illicit midwifery equipment. The comments split. Half the neighborhood defending us, the other half too scared of Mara to say anything but just follow the rules. That's when my brother, Noah, stepped in. Noah's not just the sheriff. He's the kind of guy who believes in evidence over emotion. He sat in our kitchen, looked over the fines, the pesticide jar, the online screenshots, and said, real quiet, "This isn't about bylaws. It's about control. And folks who need control that bad, they don't just stop. They escalate." He suggested we start documenting everything. We put up a hidden camera above the kitchen window, aimed right at the sugar jar. Then, as a kind of bait, we left a fresh pitcher of lemonade labeled "for shower" right on the counter in clear view. 3 days later, Mara announced a welcome baby event, mandatory for everyone on the block. Lena didn't want to go, but I figured maybe, just maybe, it was her way of making peace. The cul-de-sac was decked out with pink and blue balloons, folding tables loaded with cookies and cupcakes. Mara stood behind the lemonade pitcher, smile wide as ever. insisting on pouring every cup herself. When Lena sipped hers, she froze. The color drained from her face, and she reached for a cupcake like she needed to wash away the taste. The second she bit down, she nearly collapsed. That's when Noah moved. The neighbor he'd invited, actually a health inspector, stepped forward with a test strip, dipped it in the lemonade. The strip turned blue, sign of heavy metals. Mara's hands shook as she stammered. About electrolytes. The inspector asked about the powder in her apron. Mara offered a label, citrus brightener, all natural. But Noah's deputy opened the container, and inside was a cracked bag of industrial rodenticide, double-bagged in a lemon sugar canister. The label, clear as day, fatal if ingested. Noah bagged it as evidence, body cam rolling. Mara exploded, accused me of framing her, screamed about how I hated the HOA, how I was against order. Noah didn't even argue. He just played the footage from our hidden camera. Mara, at dawn, unlocking our back door with a key, gloved, moving straight for our sugar jar, sprinkling in the poison, whispering, "Harmony tastes like quiet." It took less than 2 minutes. You could hear a pin drop. A neighbor gasped. I looked Mara dead in the eye and said, "You came into my house. You poisoned my wife." She started yelling about easement access, emergency ingress, and common area oversight. The health inspector recited the law, adulteration of food, attempted poisoning, criminal trespass. Noah stepped up and read her rights. Mara tried to call her treasurer, but her phone had already been bagged as evidence. She'd dropped it at our gate. The texts were there. Baby shower solves everything. Lemon is merciful. Hazmat rolled in and bagged every cookie, every cup, every cupcake. 3 cupcakes tested positive. One neighbor, shaking, pale, handed Noah a memo from Mara's office, scribbled in the margins. If she miscarries, we reset to order. That's when the air turned cold, and people pulled their kids away. From Mara, the DA's investigator asked Mara point blank, "Did you enter the Crowell home? Did you put anything in their food?" Mara's lawyer cut her off, told her to keep quiet, but it was already over. Lena spent the night in the hospital, trace amounts of rodenticide, enough to harm, not enough to kill quickly. The doctor said if we hadn't caught it, we could have lost everything. Our daughter made it. Lena made it. But we were this close. Trial day came 4 months later. Lena carried our baby into that courtroom. Mara, at the defense table, looked like she'd shrunk, but her eyes still sparkled with that wild belief she was above us all. The prosecutor laid out everything. Rodenticide in the lemonade, traces in our sugar jar, video of Mara in our kitchen. Margin notes about breeding violations. A psychologist testified about her delusions of control. Mara's vice chair, Deborah, flipped for immunity, admitted Mara talked about density caps and children depreciating neighborhood value. The defense tried to claim stress, but the prosecution had the texts. Baby shower solves everything. Lemon is merciful. If she miscarries, we reset to order. The jury needed 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, food adulteration, aggravated burglary, witness intimidation. The judge called it premeditated cruelty. Masquerading as governance, said Mara weaponized trust and turned our community into a tool of terror. Life, no parole. The gavel hit. Mara tried to argue, tried to scream about property values and rules, but the bailiffs dragged her away, her voice echoing off the marble, still convinced she was the hero in her own twisted story. Now, every time I hear the sound of ice clinking in a glass, I think about how close we came to losing it all, how justice sometimes looks like a neighbor in handcuffs. What would you have done if it were your family? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk. Was this justice, or just another chapter in the never-ending HOA wars? Hit that subscribe if you want more real-life drama, and tell me, what's the wildest thing your neighborhood ever did to keep order?